All right, we're going to get back at it today with the rise of authoritarianism now in Germany. And we'll start talking about the conditions that give rise to the eventual takeover of Germany by Adolf Hitler. And we start with World War I. The defeat in World War I of the German army while they were still in France would leave many German soldiers and other German nationalists disillusioned with the end of that war. Nationalists and veterans would accuse the November criminals, those politicians that ultimately signed the surrender, of stabbing Germans in the back. And the punitive diktat, as they referred to the Treaty of Versailles, this dictated treaty, would go further to grow animosities against this new government in Germany and against the Treaty of Versailles. Remember, Germany was forced to give up territory, and they lost 4 million German citizens to neighboring countries. Germany would lose its empire. Germany would lose its military. Germany had to sign the War Guilt Clause, and Germany was forced to pay financial reparations to the victors of the war. That contributes to the negative economic factors that will lead to authoritarianism in Germany. The need to pay war debts, the need to pay the reparations will spark an inflation crisis in Germany that grows even worse in 1923 following the Ruhr crisis, where Germany had missed reparations payments. The Ruhr region of West Germany was invaded and occupied by France and Belgium, and the German government continued to print German marks to pay the workers that were on strike during this Ruhr crisis. This exacerbates an inflation problem to the point of hyperinflation in Germany. Now, the economic problems get worse in the late 1920s with the Great Depression. The United States will withdraw its loans to Germany, and high unemployment, as high as 30% by 1932, will be made worse by Weimar Republic protectionism. Now, that Weimar Republic, that government of Germany after World War I, will also contribute to the conditions that lead to the rise of Nazi Germany. The Weimar Constitution called for an election of a president every 7 years. And at times of national emergency, that president could rule by decree. The Chancellor of Germany, the head of government, was appointed by the president, leaving that president with tremendous political power. The Reichstag, the legislative body of Germany, had seats that were gained through proportional representation. Essentially, seats were distributed to different parties based on the percentage of votes those parties received in national elections. This would make it difficult for any single party to control the government, resulting in a number of more unstable coalition governments and rule by presidential decree. Political violence was also a feature of Germany in the 19-teens and 20s. The Bolshevik Revolution in 1917 would inspire communist movements in many other European nations. In Germany, this was called the Spartacus League. In response to those communist movements, right-wing nationalist ex-soldiers would form paramilitary organizations in Germany like the Freikorps that resisted the growing influence of communist parties in Germany. The Nazi Party itself orchestrated a violent attempt to overthrow the government in November of 1923 called the Beer Hall Putsch. Adolf Hitler, though, needs to be central to any discussion of the rise of authoritarianism in Germany. Hitler became political following the defeat of Germany in World War I. Deeply anti-Semitic, he believed that communists and Jewish people in Germany were working together to undermine the German culture and society. He became a member of the German Workers' Party, and later that party's name became the National Socialist German Workers' Party, and he helped write this Nazi Party platform. This platform featured ideas of nationalism and socialism. It was racialist, it was anti-Semitic, it was anti-democratic. The program called for the unification of all German people, what was referred to as Gross Deutschland, that all the German people of Europe should be in one country. This would include Austria. This would include lands that Germany lost during the Treaty of Versailles. It would call for the overturning, the revocation of the Treaty of Versailles. It would call for the acquisition of land through the Lebensraum program, gaining new territory for Germany's growing population. It would call for citizenship for all ethnic Germans and denial of citizenship for Jews. Now, this Nazi party would absolutely use force in its attempt to rise. The Brown Shirts, the Nazi Party's paramilitary organization, known as the SA, would use violence towards any opposition like communists and Jews and support party membership and party growth. In 1923, Adolf Hitler and Erich Ludendorff, leaders of the Nazi Party, would call on their SA, their paramilitary organization, to attempt to violently overthrow the government in Munich, Germany. This beer hall putsch in Munich was put down pretty quickly by the Bavarian police, and Hitler would be arrested, but ultimately given a light sentence. This would lead to the violence of the Nazi Party toning down in the aftermath of the putsch. Now, Hitler's prison sentence resulted in the development of his book known as Mein Kampf, My Struggle, which would lay out his ideology and goals. Ideology that centered on the political division between Germans and Jews and nationalists in Germany and communists. Belief that German destiny could only be that of an Aryan nation, this Northern European Caucasian state that would destroy international Jewry. It was anti-communist as well. Now, Hitler's propaganda, organized by Joseph Goebbels in the 1920s, would depict Adolf Hitler as a strong German leader that was the man needed to return Germany to its great power status. Use of media and film and radio, along with traditional posters and newspaper columns, modern transportation, the railroad and airplanes to quickly move between German cities to give political rallies. Goebbels was so successful, he would later be named the Minister of Propaganda in Nazi Germany. Now, in the 1930s, with the onset of the Great Depression, the Nazi Party's percentage of votes in those proportional elections would grow, with no party, though, receiving majority elections, so weak coalition governments had to be established. This left the President Hindenburg to rule by decree. Now, Adolf Hitler, as the leader of the largest party in Germany, wanted to be the Chancellor of Germany. Hindenburg offered him a vice chancellorship under German Chancellor Franz von Papen, but Hitler declined that, only wanting that chancellor position. He would run in 1932 for president against Hindenburg. He would lose, but his success in that election, his votes in that election, would prove that Hitler and the Nazi Party did have wide support amongst the populace, leading ultimately in January of 1933 for Hindenburg to appoint Hitler as Chancellor of Germany. It was hoped that the Nazis were too weak to challenge the traditional rule of Weimar Germany, but it would allow him to gain support of anti-communists and the right-wing elite Germans. And Hitler will then take the move from chancellor to president in our next discussion. We'll talk to you later.